Just before we start, Avram Nissen, Rav Lugamsky is sitting Shiva. Is that, can you update us on that?
His mother was nifter last Friday afternoon, and he went to America to arrange from Levaya. I think the Levaya was on either Wednesday or Thursday. He should be back on Monday.
Mhm. So he's going to be sitting Shiva during the time that he's here, or should we call him?
I don't know yet.
Okay, okay,
I don't know yet.
okay. Thank you, and he should have a nechama.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So we're on the screen, and the Masechta is moed katan. The first word is mashkin. We have it up here in big, but in general, the moed katan is about chol moed. Moed, even though maybe we call the word moedim the chagim itself, the holidays itself, but in the terminology that the Chazal used, it seems that moed is the chol moed, and that's also the greeting people say moedim l'samcha, good moed. That has to do with the chol moed. And that's what the Masechta is about. Maseches Beitza is called Maseches Yom Tov. That's about the Yom Tov, Hilchos Yom Tov itself. And Moed Katan is about Chol HaMoed. It comes in other sugyas also. And the main sugya about halachas of Avelos is going to be in Moed Katan. The halachas of mourning for an Avel is in Moed Katan also at length. It comes in Agav, and this is where Chazal elaborated on it. So we start, and Be'ez Hashem, it should be a good journey. It's about how many daf? About 28 or so. I didn't look ahead. Just to jump ahead a second, just to see.
While you're jumping ahead, I must. I want to mention that there's some kind of bumping on the table from the microphone every so often. There's like a low boom, boom sound. Is somebody bumping the table or something?
Is anybody else? Maybe it was myself. Maybe I was banging or something. I didn't realize. But if anybody,
okay, I don't know.
If it continues, please let me know.
It's on if we have the overhead on.
It's okay, good shit.
Okay, please do let us know.
You want the overhead on?
Yeah, I think that's good for you.
Okay.
Okay, hope that'll be a good journey. So the mission starts about watering a field on Chol HaMoed. That's a lot of agriculture today, and the next couple of dapim, and maybe we don't live it so much here in the city. But the halachas is about watering fields on Chol HaMoed. So the Mishnah starts, Mashkin Beis HaShlachin b'Moed. The Beis HaShlachin is a field which has to be irrigated manually by the rainwater is not enough. That's the Gemara is going to say why it's called so. There are two kinds of fields. One is called Beis HaShlachin, one's a Beis HaBal, and we'll see those terms coming up in the Gemara. Beis HaShlachin is a field which is not does not suffice. The rainwater has to be irrigated. So if you don't, it's going to be a hefsed. It's going to be a loss, and that's the way Mishnah's way of saying something which is a loss. Even though the actual examples might not all be relevant to us, but we can get the principles that we could apply. So this is a hefsed. Makom hefsed. It's going to be a loss to the field. The field is going to go, going to get ruined if you're not going to water it. So that's the first halacha. Mashkin Beis HaShlachin b'Moed. You're allowed to water a field which needs irrigation, and it'll be hefsed if you don't. It'll be a loss on Chol HaMoed. The Mishnah also throws in the word shvius. Shvius means the halacha of shmita. That shmita. So there's no connection between the two, the halachas of Chol HaMoed and the halachas of shmita. But the Mishnah throws it in, and there are going to be sugyas in the beginning about shmita also, which is very relevant to us now. Here it says that you're allowed to water a field which needs to be watered. It'll be a hefsed if you don't, both on Chol HaMoed and also on shmita. So mine is a spring that came forth, Yatsa B'tchila, and the Gemara is going to say, the Rashi right away says that if it for recently sprang forth, so it means that it hasn't yet taken hold, and it could be that it's going to fall in, and you might come to fix it again. So mine Yatsa B'tchila is a chiddush, that a mayan spring that just went out now, Yatsa B'tchila, it came out, it formed. So that's a chiddush, because you might have to fix it and build it, and that's not so established yet. So that's a big chiddush. Even though you might come to do tircha, and still it's mutter. Bein Yimayin Shelo Yatsa B'tchila is not a chiddush, even if it's an old one and it's already established and it's not going to fall in. That seems to be a small chiddush, lesser of a chiddush. And the Gemara is going to say why you need these words for. We already said the big chiddush. We said that even if it's a chash, you might come to be toreach. As the Mishnah is going to say right away that you're not allowed to be toreach. You're not allowed to do a lot of work. It's only going to be hefsid. But as long as it's not going to be a tircha, not going to be too much exertion. So here the chiddush is, even though it's a mind shasa b'tchila, and you might be choshesh, maybe it's going to fall in and it's going to come to do exertion. No, you're not choshesh. But as we'll see in a second, that you're not allowed to actually exert. If there's going to be reason to have to be toreach a lot, then you're not allowed to do it, even though it's going to be hefsid. And that's what the Mishnah continues. That you're not only allowed to water in a way that it's not a tircha, but meg geshamim, that's a rainwater that has collected, and you have to take it by bucket or whatever it might be. Meg hilun is also some kind of a pump that also is difficult. So that's what the Mishnah's way of saying that you're not allowed to be torech. You're not allowed to do extra exertion. Tircha yisera. So if we stop here, we have the halacha about chol hamoed that you're allowed the makom seda, the beis hashlochen. That's the case of makom seda, that it's a loss if you're not going to water it. So they permitted it, but dafka, but they say lo memeksham, but you can't do it in a way that's a tircha. In between, it said that if it's a mind shatsa b'tchila, which is a chash, you might fall in and you might come to tircha. We're not going to be choshesh. You could water it. You could, and even if it is going to come, it is going to break down, and you're going to have to do tircha. We're not going to allow that. But there's no chash. There's no chash that you're going to do tircha. And that's how the Mishnah ends off, that you can't water it in a way that you have to work very hard. The Mishnah continues, more things that you're not allowed to do. Einos and ugios likfanim. A geffen is a grapevine, and ugios would be some kind of a ditch that you would dig around each, the source of the root of each grapevine, in order that the water should collect. So that's also a tircha. And maybe it's going to be, maybe it's unnecessary. The facts of why each one is going to be us, we'll see more in the Gemara. But we're just learning the Mishnahs now. Today's Gemara is only going to be on the first words, the first couple of lines. But let's learn the Mishnah now. You're not allowed to make these ditches around the geffen in order to collect the water. So there came in a machlokes about Shemitah here also, but first about moed. You're not allowed to make an irrigation ditch. An amma is an irrigation ditch. I think it's called an amma because it's long and it might be an amma by an amma. The standard, we'll see later on, the irrigation ditch was about 6 tefachim by 6 tefachim. An amma by an amma, that's about half a meter by half a meter wide, half a meter deep, and as long as you need it to be. And the word amma also is called an arm. So also the same thing, that it's long and maybe narrow. So you're not allowed to, in short, you're not allowed to make an irrigation ditch for the first time. That's tircha. You're working very hard on moed. But shvius also, here it says that Shemitah also you're not allowed to do it. We'll see more about shvius. Why would you not allowed to be building on shvius? We will see the sugyas later on. But that you are allowed to. So it came in a
It's
the ruin, that you would be allowed to fix it up. The one who was Mikulkal.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, hon. I'm sorry, Rebbe, we got lost as you said. So then after you said, the Chachamim said that you can make a ditch from the outset on Shvi'is, and then you said, and it comes out, and then we didn't hear you.
Okay, I forgot which words I said, but this issue, the machlokes, is about Shemitah. It comes out that this issue about the Chachamim and Rabbi Elazar ben Azari is about Shemitah. That Rabbi Elazar ben Azari says that you're not allowed to do it even on Shemitah, and the Chachamim say that you are allowed to do it on Shemitah. But as far as everybody agrees not allowed to. That Rabbi Elazar ben Azari is not allowed to make an irrigation ditch for the first time in the beginning to get out on the moed. And the Mishnah continues, if we skip about Shvius, so it says, that you're allowed to be, but even you're not allowed to make originally the first one, but you're not allowed to do it for the first time, but you are allowed to fix one which has already been built and it got moved, you're allowed to fix it. The rest of the mission is mostly going to be that you're allowed to do tzarchi rabbim, which is a new point we didn't talk about so far. We just talked about hefsid, otherwise as long as you don't do a tircha, and other kinds of tirchas that the Mishnah spoke about. The rest of the Mishnah, I think, is going to say a list of things that you're allowed to do because it's tzarchi rabbim, even though a person on his own may be usher, but there's a special letter in Chol HaMoed to do communal service, things that everybody needs. So it says, if there are public waterways, Rashi seems to say later on that it means that it's got full of stones and you want to clean it out, so you'd be allowed to do that. You'd be allowed to dig out all the dirt that got collected. You're allowed to also fix up the roads. The road nowadays, we have roads that are paved with asphalt and it doesn't get muddy. But in those days, there was a dirt road, and after the season, you had to fix it up after the raining season. So you're allowed to fix up the roads. And people used to go out, the community themselves would go out in order to fix the roads. So they're allowed to do that at Chol HaMoed. There's our chovas and the town squares. There's mikvahs hamayim, the place where they had a mikvahs that the water collected. So if it would get ruined, then you'd have to fix it up. So the tzibur would go out and fix up those mikvahs also on Chol HaMoed. Any kind of a public service, public needs, you're allowed to do on Chol HaMoed. It seems to be a special letter of Tzarchei Rabim. But signing the sakvaris, you're also allowed to mark graves. If it's a grave and it's not marked, the Kohen don't know that there's tomb over there. So you're allowed to mark it. It's also Tzarchei Rabim to make sure that the Kohanim don't go in places where they're tamei, or they might avoid areas completely if they don't know where the tomb is exactly. So you're allowed to mark it. The word that's signed in is to mark. You're allowed to mark the graves. You also not on climb. You also go out on climb. We had this recently, the issue about going on climb, that Bezdin would send shluchim to make sure that nobody's going climb. In the beginning of the season, we had the Rosh Chodesh Adar. They would announce that everybody should make sure al hashkolim, al climb. So that's the same concept over here. It says Chol HaMoed also. The shluchim would go out in order to check, investigate. They'd be the inspectors to see that there's not climb growing in people's fields, and if there is, we'll see later on what they would do about it. So we just read the Mishnah, and that's a lot of subjects. But to go back to the beginning of the Mishnah said that you're allowed to water a field, which would be a hefsid if you don't. That's the base of shlachin, the field which has to be irrigated manually. It's not enough to rely on the rainwater. And even if there's a chash that it might fall in, because it was just recently, I don't have a good word for it, that this spring just recently came out, and there's a chash that might fall in, and you might be torech. You're not allowed to be torech if it does. As the Mishnah says, that you're not allowed to water from rainwater or from some kind of a pump in a way that is a tircha. So in short, the rule of the Mishnah is that you're only allowed to do malacha of watering the field if it's a hefsid, if it's going to be a loss if you don't, provided that you don't do tircha. Even if it's a loss, only if you don't do an extra tircha, but an extra tircha is going to be yasa. And that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. So if that's good, we jump to the Gemara. And the Gemara has the kasha that we mentioned as we ourselves were learning, that it says, even a mayin shatsa b'tchila, even though it's recently come out, and there is a chash that it might fall in. And also, a mayan shalo yatsa b'tchila means that didn't just come out recently, it's been there for a long time, and there's no chash. So these words are extra. Then mayan shalo yatsa b'tchila goes without saying. We even said a bigger chiddush, even if it's a mayin shatsa b'tchila, and there's a chash that might fall in without choshesh. So surely if it was a mayan that's been here already for a while and it's no chash that it's going to fall in, surely it's mutter. That's the Gemara's kasha that I asked right away. The Gemara asked the kasha, Hashta yesh lo mayan shatsa b'tchila, dasilin pulei mashkin, miman shalo yatsa b'tchila, dasilin pulei mibaya. If the Mishnah says that you're even allowed to water from a mayan which has come out recently, which is a chash that it might fall in, still it's mutter. So from a mayan which is not just recent, and there's no chash that's going to fall in, is it a question? It's pashut. So the Mishnah is extra words that are unnecessary. The Gemara answers Amri Itzra. So they said, in Beis Medrash, they said the answer is that it's necessary because, let's say the answer outside, then we'll see it inside, that the Mishnah only permits Beis HaShalachin. It only permits if there's a hefsid, as we said. And that implies that if it's not hefsid, it's asa. If it would be a field which the rainwater is pretty much enough. Of course, it would be better if you put more water, if you add more water, if you water it more, but the thing's not going to die. It's not going to be ruined. So the Mishnah applies that is only for Beis HaShalachin, not for Beis HaBaal. So for there, the Chiddush is the other way. For there, the Chiddush is that if it's a Beis HaBaal, if it's a field which suffices the rainwater, that it's usher, even if it's not chash that it's going to fall in. So we have two extremes, that a Beis HaShalachin is mutter, even if it's a recently formed spring, and a Beis HaBaal is usher, even if it's an old spring. That's no chash. That's what the Gemara is going to answer. The Gemara answers, Amri Itzrich. They say, the answer is that it's necessary. If it only would have said as you wanted, that I only should say recently formed spring. That's the reason why the Mishnah only permits a hefsid, a Beis HaShalachin, which is a hefsid if you don't water it, but a Beis HaBaal, which is not a hefsid, the Mishnah does not permit because you're talking about this big chiddush that it might fall in. But if there's a a spring which is not recently formed, there's no chash it's going to fall. I would think that it's permissible a base of bal even though it's not a hefsid. Kamash malan, and now I just highlighted what the halacha comes out. The Mishnah wants to say clearly that a base of bal is usher. There are two extremes. Base shlachin, which is a hefsid, is always mutter. Base of bal, which is not a hefsid, is always usher. And that's the reason why the Mishnah said both cases. So that's the end. That's the end so far. That if it's a hefsid, you're allowed to water even from a mayan, which might fall in. Achshash might come to do tircha. Of course, don't do tircha, but we're not choshesh. You're going to come to that. And a base of bal, if it's not a hefsid, then you're not allowed to water, even if there's no chash of a tircha. Okay, that's good. The Gemara, next couple of lines, is going to just explain the terminology of what does it mean, Beis HaShlach and Beis HaBal. We said a Beis HaShlach means that it needs water besides the rainwater. Beis HaBal means that it doesn't need water besides the rainwater. The rainwater suffices. And the Gemara is going to say why those words mean that. There's the term Beis HaShlach, and then we're going to see there's a word Beis HaBal, as the Gemara just used before. The Gemara just explains, I don't know what this is. The Gemara just explains what the words mean. From where is the mashmos? Anybody for the word mashmos? How do you say that in English? For the meaning that the word Beis HaShlachan means thirst. The word sechusa is Aramaic for thirst. Why do you? Where is the source?
Indication.
Indication. Thank you very much. What is the indication that the word shlachan means thirst? The word the pasuk talks about that's in the end of Ki Seitze by the din of by the parsha about Amalek. Everyone knows it from Parsha Zohar. You, Am Yisrael, were Ayef Yogeh. Everyone knows the word Ayef means tired, but the Gemara is going to say that it means thirsty. You are thirsty and weary. It's interesting that the word Ayef, which means tired, also means thirsty, and it goes together. When somebody's thirsty, he's tired, and it goes together. But the Gemara uses the word here that the translation for the word Ayef, which the Gemara is translating, means thirsty, is mishalei, and the Rashi points out that the hey and the ches are interchangeable. So even though it's mishalchin, it's a shalhin, shin lamed hey. That's the shorish of the word, and that's why we use the word mishalchin to mean a thirsty field. So we translated it till now as a field which is not does not suffice. The rainwater is not enough. So that's what the translation of the word means, a thirsty field. What is the indication of the word Beis HaBal that it means that it has enough? The word Yasfusa sounds like it's settled, it's enough. That's talking about that that Hashem is going to be with Am Yisrael the same way that a youth is husband, the word Baal. But the Gemara is going to say that it means to be miyushav, to be settled with a maiden. Ulam is a bechor, and like Elam, and Basulta is a Basula, a virgin. So just like a youth and a maiden, so too, your children, your Am Yisrael will also, Tzion, Yerushalayim, her children will be Yivaluch Banoich, that I said Alakoich before, Yivaluch Banoich, that Am Yisrael will be settled in Eretz Yisrael, so in Yerushalayim over there. So that's what the word Baal means, to be settled. So here the point would be that the field is enough watered by rainwater. There's an interesting thing that the Ben Chananel and the bring down to Yerushalmi that a little different than our Gemara, that it has to do with Mitra Da'ara. The Gemara says in Tainus that the rain is considered the Mitra Bala Da'ara, that the relationship between the heavens and the earth is like a husband and a wife, and the rain that's coming is like the rain, the way that a husband will be with a wife. So the same word, the Yival, has something to do with the relationship. So how does it say over there? Holy dove etzmicha, v'nasan zera v'lazarei ki kasher yirei geshem. So it uses the word over there, holy dove etzmicha. That's another reason why we use the word Baal. So what we have so far, the words shlachin means thirsty, and the word Baal means settled, and that's two kinds of fields. And the Beis HaShlachin is a hefsid, and that the Mishnah permits. As long as you're not going to actually do a tircha. There's no chash you're going to do a tircha, but you're not allowed to actually do a tircha. Like the Mishnah ended off that, and the third line over there that it said that they can't do make yisham and make hilon because that's a tircha, too much work and to exertion to water the field. And now the Gemara goes into that, and that's the new sugya now. Mantana. Mantana the Pseda in Avachalo, Bafil Malcolm Seda, Mitrochnami Lotachina. Who's the author of our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says that there are two conditions. One is that it has to be a Pseda, like we said, only Beis HaShlachin, only if it's a Hefset, it's a loss if you're not going to water it. And even then, we only permit you if as long as you're not going to be Toreach. We're not choshesh you're going to be Toreach. That we said that Mayan Shiatza B'tchil is mutter, but you're not allowed to actually be Toreach. Rashi points that out. I just highlighted it. I feel welcome say the lomit otachina, like it says. You're not allowed to manually take the rainwater or a pump and way that it's a lot of work. You're allowed to water it, but as long as you don't have to work hard. So these are two conditions that our Mishnah says, and we want to know who's the author. And we're going to bring down a couple of Tanam. We're going to see the Narabali agrees to our Mishnah. The Halach is going to be like our Mishnah. You have to have these two conditions. It's only mutter to water it if it's a hefsid, and even that is only mutter if you don't have to be Toreach. And now we're looking around to find out who's the author of that halacha. That's going to say, Yaakov says you're allowed to draw water from one tree to the other tree. If there's water under one tree, I guess there's some kind of a ditch around it in a way that the water collected, and you want to dig out a groove that the water should channel it to the next tree, also to other trees. That you're allowed to do because each tree needs water. But you're not allowed to water the whole field. Rashi says the whole field here is the Beis Habal. It's a wall that the rest of the field does not need the water, just the trees. So you're only allowed to do the part that's the Seder, only the Hefset, but you're not allowed to do the part that's only going to be extra, like the Beis Habal. That's what the Gemara sees. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov holds like our Mishnah that only a Pseda, but if it's not a Pseda, that's Aser. But the Gemara says that's half a story. We're looking for two conditions, and you only told us one so far. Why did the Gemara introduce that we're looking for somebody that says Pseda in Havachalo? Havacha means just extra. That only mutter if it's going to be a loss. And then the second thing, that even for Pseda, you're not allowed to be Toreach. So the Gemara is going to complain that you'll just find Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov that says one of the two. He didn't say the second point. That's the Gemara's kasha now. He just hear from Rabbi Elazar that he doesn't allow extra, the revach, like a Beis Habal. That's true. Only Beis HaShlach and not a Beis Habal. But Tircha Makom say the Mishamatlei. Do you see the second point that we're not going to allow Tircha? That even though when it's a Pseda, we don't allow Tircha. He doesn't talk about that. So there's not that you didn't prove enough. It is true you proved one of the 2 points, but you didn't prove the second point. So now the Gemara goes on to find the author. El Amra Papa Amani Rabbi Yehudi. So that's going to be the Maskana. Rabbi Yehudi is going to be the author of our Mishnah, and we're going to find that he holds both of these conditions. It has to be a Pseda, and also it shouldn't be a Tircha. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Mana Yotze Betchila, Mashkin Mimenu Afilu Stay Beis Habal Dev Rab Meir. So here, very lenient. Rab Meir says even a Beis Habal, which we said till now you're not allowed to. He says a Beis Habal is permissible. Even a field which is sufficient water from the rain, still you're allowed to do better by giving it water. And he even says Mana Yotze Betchila, which we said there's a chashash might fall in, you might come to do work. He's very lenient. Even a Mayin Yotze B'tchila is mutter Beis Habal. So he's surely not our Mishnah. He permits you in a Beis Habal. That's not him. That's not going to be our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, which here will focus because the Gemara told us already he's going to be the author. What does he say? Ein mashkin el stay Beis HaShlachin shechorva. You're only allowed to water a Beis HaShlachin. That's good. That's like our Mishnah. Shechorva. The Gemara is going to soon focus on what the word shechorva means. The word literally means that it got ruined. It got destroyed. What does that mean? A Beis HaShlachin that got destroyed. What does it mean? We'll come to that soon. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Omer, a third opinion, lokach v'lokach. Not a Beis Habal, not a Beis HaShlachin. He's more machmir. He doesn't even allow to water a Beis HaShlachin. That's also going to be against our Mishnah. Rabbi Meir is too lenient. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is too machmir. Rabbi Meir says even a Beis Habal is mutter against our Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that even a Beis HaShlachin is zaser against our Mishnah. So we're going to find Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara is going to also show that not only does he say that it's mutter hefsid and it's zaser if it's not hefsid, he's also going to say that tircha zaser. We're going to try to find that. The Brisa continues. The person should not yafne. I think the word yafne will mean to channel, like the word poneh means to change direction. That there's a channel of water, irrigation, and you want to channel it that it should water his garden and his chorva, a place which has been a chorva usually is a place which was once built up and it got destroyed. What I call a chorva. I guess that they still had need to water it. I'm not sure what exactly the water was necessary over there, but it says that you're not allowed to channel the water on Chol HaMoed, and Rashi says the Gemara is going to see from these words that you're not allowed to do a tircha. We'll see Rashi soon, but Rabbi Yehuda said two things. One is that it's mutter Beis HaShlachin, asur Beis Habal, and he says now that you're not allowed to channel water to your garden. This channeling might be a tircha. But first the Gemara goes back a second to this word here, shechorba. It said it doesn't go back in the word chorvaso. When the Gemara says my chorva, we're not going back in the word chorvaso. Chorvaso we know means a chorva. But what is the word chorva? That it says that Rabbi Yehuda now said a couple of lines ago that the only lot of water is stay b'sashachan shachorva. A field, a thirsty field that got ruined. What does the word that mean? If it actually got ruined, so lamali the mashkli, what are you watering it for? It's not worth anything. It's not producing anything. It's ruined. Like Rashi says that it doesn't produce anymore. So stay bore. Doesn't mean that. That it had a water source until now, but that water source got ruined. The chorva means that the source of its water got ruined. It had some kind of an irrigation that because it needed it. It was not a beis habal. It was a beis hashlachin. It needed to be manually irrigated, but that source of water got destroyed, and now yatzala mayan acher, that a new mayan sprang forth. So we said, similar to our Mishnah, that Rabbi Yehuda allows a beis hashlachin even a man she'atza b'tchila, and he's not choshesh you're going to be toreach. The Gemara just finishes off explaining Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and he was the third opinion of the Brisa. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah malokach v'lokach, which means lo shnachor b'mayana v'lo shnalo chor b'mayana. That he doesn't allow a mayan shatsa b'tchila. Could be that he would allow a old mayan that he doesn't talk about, it seems. But the way the Gemara explains that venkach or venkach, the Gemara doesn't say beis abal beis hashlachin. It means a beis hashlachin that has a new mayan or an old mayan. A mayan shatsa b'tchila is also even if the old one was expected to. You didn't know that you had it, or you do have it. You're not allowed to use a mayan shatsa b'tchila. So he's surely against our Mishnah because our Mishnah says you are allowed to use you are allowed to water from a mayan shatsa b'tchila. You're not choshesh that it's going to get ruined. But what does the Gemara see? Rashi says, let's point out the Rashi over here. He says that from Rabbi Yehuda, this we see what we're looking for, because Rabbi Yehuda says that it's mutar beis hashlachin and not a beis habal. That's fine. And also megishamim, he only permits a mayan. He doesn't permit megishamim. The fact that he doesn't say the absence, the silence, that the Yehuda doesn't say even allowed to do rainwater and a pump water, that means you're not allowed to do it. That sounds like a little bit very, very delicate proof. But then Rashi also says, because the fact that he says lo yafna mayim, that he shouldn't channel water into his gina, that means you're not allowed to do a tircha yisera, and that's why we found the 2 points of Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore, the water of our Mishnah is going to be Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara protests a little bit that you don't mamish see that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a beis habal would be yasser in all instances. He did say that it's only mutar beis hashlachin shachorva, and not a beis habal. But maybe that's because he's talking about a mayan shatsa b'tchila. Once we said that the word chorva means that chorva from the old mayan and now a new mayan sprang forth. So he's saying that beis hashlachin it's only mutar beis hashlachin to use this new mayan, even though the chashash it's gonna have to be toreach. But maybe a beis habal he also would permit more than our Mishnah. If it's no chash, if it would be a mayan shalo yatsa b'tchila, that's the more kasha now. Ad kan lakam dilma umimai. How do you know our Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda? Dilma ad kan lakam Yehuda beis hashlachin beis habal lo el mayan shatsa b'tchila. Since it's coming to be lenient here and saying even allowed to use a mayan shatsa b'tchila, even though there's a chash that you're going to it's gonna fall in, you have to build it up. Maybe that's why he's saying dafka beis hashlachin. But a beis habal he would permit if it would be no chash of tircha, which was the Gemara spoke about this in the beginning. That was the first diuk in the Gemara that our Mishnah is mashma that a beis habal is also in all instances. This diuk that we said before that our Mishnah holds a beis habal is also even from an old mayan. So how do you see Rabbi Yehuda agrees to that? Maybe he does says that's beis habal is also because it's a mayan shatsa b'tchila, but on the dilma still in pules on Amud Beis, maybe it's going to fall in. I have a mayan shalom b'tchila, but if it was an old mayan which is already established, the lo still in pulei afilu beis habal nami, maybe he'd be more lenient than our Mishnah. So it's not beferish, not mamish muchach. But my answer is that you're right. At this point, we don't mamish have beferish and Rabbi Yehuda, but we do have our Mishnah, and nobody else fits. So Rabbi Yehuda is close enough that it must be him. And don't say this lam de shechiluk and say that he would hold that a beis habal would be permissible sometimes. He's going to agree to our Mishnah that a beis habal is also in all instances. That's the Gemara's answer. Okay, on who are you going to throw our Mishnah onto? It's not anybody else. It's not Rav Meir. It's not Elazar ben Yaakov. It's not Elazar ben Azariah. And the Rav Yehuda lo shna mayan shatsa b'tchila, lo shna mayan shatsa b'tchila, beis hashlachanin, beis habal lo. He holds that it's always also a beis habal. No difference if it's a new mine or old mine. Even an old mine is also also if it's a beis habal because it's not a hefsid. V'haidiktani mayan shatsa b'tchila, lo diach kochad Rav Meir. Afilu mayan shatsa b'tchila, mashkin imenu afilu shdei habal. The reason why the Brisa spoke about mayan shatsa b'tchila was to say the chiddush of Rav Meir. Rav Meir is very lenient. He says that it's even mutter beis habal, even though it's a mayan shasa b'tchila. That's a big chiddush. So we wanted to talk about a mayan shasa b'tchila, a new mayan for the chiddush of Rabbi Meir. But Rav Yehuda would say that a beis habal is asa, even if it will be an old mayan. So that's the end of the sugya, and we found again back to the yisod that our Mishnah only permits a hefsid if it's a loss, if you don't do the malacha, and also you're not allowed to do tircha. And we found that Rabbi Yehuda is the author of our Mishnah, and that's how we're going to paskin. Even though we have other opinions that are more lenient and more machmir, we pass like Rabbi Yehuda that a stay based shlach in his mutter, even a man chasa v'tchila, and his chash might do malacha, might do tircha, but you're not allowed to do tircha, and that's what the Mishnah says that make yisham and mezasa, and that's how we paskin.
Excuse me, are we saying that when it comes to hefseda and tircha, that the peseda, there shouldn't be too much, but sometimes there will be, and we won't be allowed. And the tircha should be too much tircha, but sometimes we do matriach.
I didn't grasp what you're saying. Again, there are two subjects. One is peseda, means loss. If it's not a loss, there's no heter. Only if there's going to be a loss is there a heter. And even when there's a loss, we'll only permit you if it's not too much exertion. If there's it might come to exertion, that we're not scared that it might happen. But if it does happen, if there is if it's necessary to be toreach, we're not going to allow you to be toreach, to exert yourself very much, even if it's going to be a loss. Did you say like that or different?
I was looking at them separately, but I see that one is hingent is dependent on the other one. So in other words, sometimes there's going to be a peseda, but it will only be because it's going to be too much tircha. So then we allow for there to be a peseda. Is that correct?
Right. It means that if there's going to be a hefsid, there's going to be a loss. So we allow you to do work, but not too much exertion. And if it's going to require a lot of exertion, we're not going to allow you to do it, even though you're going to have a loss.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next sugya. Itmar. So we're starting left field, nothing to do with us. We're going on a cruise. We're going to come back. This cruise is going to come back again. It's not going to be just a cruise for a bonus. This is necessary to get back into our sugya. But first we go left field and we're going to come back. So we talk about Hilchos Shabbos. Menachish means to take out weeds. And mashke mayim means that you're watering seeds, to water. Two subjects, taking out weeds and watering on Shabbos. Nothing to do with Chol Hamoed, nothing to do with Shemitah. We're going back to Masech Shabbos. So Mishamar Masrinan Bey. What if somebody does it on Shabbos? What do we warn him? It means which of areas he doing of the 39 melachas? What category of the 39 does weeding and watering come under? And the reason why it says Masrinan sounds like when you give us raw, you're supposed to say that you're doing a certain malacha. You have to tell him what he's doing. They talk about that halachically, maybe it'll be considered a good warning, even if you don't tell him the whole lumdus which category it is. But if you say something which is the wrong category, so he thinks that you're not being sensible. But anyway, here the question we would just put into easy language would be, which category of the 39 malachas is weeding and watering fall under? So there's machlokes. Rabbi Mishum Choresh, Rabbi Yosef Mishum Zareya. Rabbi says that it's under the category called plowing, and Rabbi Yosef says it's under the category called sowing, to plant. So we know that these are two of the 39 malachas. One is Choresh, one is Zareya, and machlokes of weeding and watering, which category they fall under. And each one explains himself. It's reasonable the way I'm saying, because the Hagdara, the definition of the malacha of choresh, of plowing, is that you're softening the earth. And this also is softening, it's preparing the earth. That when you take out the weeds and when you water it, so it's preparing the earth. You look at it that it's a preparation of the earth, or as the Gemara is going to say, that it's causing things to grow. So Rabbi says he sees the comparison more to preparing the earth to be a good earth. Rav Yosef was more reasonable, like I'm saying, that it's considered zoreya, it's considered planting, because that it's similar to the fact of zoreya, because it's causing things to grow. That when you take out the weeds, it causes it lets the things grow better. Whatever's left over, take out the weeds. There's no more competition for nutrition. So then the growth is able to grow better, and mashke also helps to grow. So two different ways of looking at these acts of weeding and watering. Abaya didn't understand because they're both right. Abaya said, you're both right, so why are you arguing about it? It should be this and that. Abaya asked Rabbi, he's one of the two opinions. He said, I don't understand you. I don't understand your opponent, Rav Yosef. And the Rav Yosef kasha mishum zarei and mishum choresh lo. Each one I ask, don't tell that what's wrong with the other one. The other one's also true. you say that you, Rabbi, say it's only considered plowing, it's not considered planting, and you have Yosef would hold that it's only considered planting, it's not considered plowing. It's both. Now, how come each one holds only of one? You might say, both of you, Rabbi or Yosef, might hold that you can't be chayiv for two things. Only can be chayiv for one category. You can't do a malacha which is considered two malachas. But Rabbi says no. That it could be that a person did one act, and that act was two malachas. He gives a case here of somebody that's pruning. When you pruning, take off extra branches. You have something growing, and too many branches, that's called zomer. To prune, to take off the extra branches. So if you're doing it in order to improve the tree, so then that's considered noteya, that you're zoreya, you're helping it to grow. If you're taking the branches off because you want the branches, you need wood, and you want to put it into your fireplace, whatever it is, so that's called kotza, that you want the product. What if you had both intentions? It means everybody agrees that if you did only to be pruning, so then it's only one malacha, that you're improving the tree. And
so what does kotzer mean? It means to cut
kotzer
off?
means reaping.
Oh, reaping. Yeah. Okay.
That's one of the 39. Notea is also, notea is usually called zoreya. We had before, zoreya and notea is the same thing. So that's called planting. So of the 39 malachas, so if someone is only pruning, that's going to be one malacha, that he's improving the tree, say, making it to grow. If he just takes off the branch because he wants the branch, because he needs the wood, that's called kotzer, that's called reaping. If he has both intentions, he's doing it for both. He wants to simultaneously improve the growth of the tree, and also he wants the wood. So he's chayiv too, because he did both of them simultaneously. So too, Abai is asking, every time you water, you're doing two things. You're improving the earth, you're softening the earth, and you're also encouraging the growth. So why can't he be chayiv too? So Abai didn't understand, not Rabbi, not Yosef. Not Rabbi Yosef. Kasha, so Abai is a kasha, and that seems to be a third opinion, that is both. So far we were in left field. We're still going to be a little bit further on left field, and finding out which malacha is weeding and watering. Machlokes if it's choresh or zoreya, maybe even both. Maybe Abai says maybe both. The Gemara continues on this cruise. Eisvei Rav Yosef l'Rabba. Rav Yosef, he's the one who says that it's zoreya and it's planting, and he's attacking Rabba who says that it's choresh. There's I guess it's a Mishnah, I don't know. Tosefta says on the side that it's a brisa that says Hamanachesh Hamachapo l'Klayim. So we're going into the halachas of Klayim, that you're not allowed to plant two things, two different species, that you're not allowed to cross breed. You can't plant. So here it talks about what if you have Klayim, things that are growing, two different species are growing in the field, and you weeded the weeds that are interfering with its growth. So you're helping it to grow. That's going to be our topic. If you had before weeding, is that considered choresh or reya? Also, Klayim, if you covered over, you had Klayim and you covered over with earth. Also, you're making it to grow. So it says here, Loka, that he's Chayiv Malkus because he did Klayim. He made things grow a crossbreed. Rabbi Kiva says not only if you did something and act to encourage it, like these cases of weeding and covering over, but even if you just maintain it, means you were passive, you didn't do anything. You just didn't take it out. If you maintain Klayim, but by not doing anything, that's also going to be also according to Rabbi Kiva. The Gemara is going to soon say, how do you know that? But what does the Gemara want from the beginning? That it says, not Rabbi Kiva. The Tanna Kama says that weeding is Chayiv Malkus for Klayim. What is weeding? We had Machlokas before. We're talking about Shabbos before, now we're talking about Klayim, but we're still going with the same principle. What is the malacha of weeding? If you take out weeds, is it considered choresh, plowing, or is it zoreya, planting? According to me, Rav Yosef, I Rav Yosef, that hold that weeding is considered planting. So then it makes sense that applies to Klayim also, because you're not allowed to plant Klayim. As the pasuk says, Sad Chalos Israel Klayim. You're not allowed to plant Klayim. But you say that weeding is not considered planting; it's only considered plowing. Is there an issa to plow Klayim? Do you find any place that there's an issa to plow Klayim? There's Rashi says that usually plowing is before anything is planted. You plow it before anything is planted, so nothing's even there. We don't find the issa to be choresh b'Klayim. Maybe we'll see more about it, but so far that's what Rashi says. Rashi says there's no. Where's the Rashi? B'shas Charisha leka Klayim klal. There's no issur by planting of Klayim because when you plow, there's nothing there. So it seems there's no pasuk about the issur of plowing Klayim. So that's what Rav Yosef's kasha to Rabba is. If you say that it's not considered zoreya, only choresh, it shouldn't be Chayiv Malkus for Klayim. About Rabba, Yes, please.
Are we saying that the Tosefta, when it says loka, we're saying that he gets lashes for kilayim?
Right.
Okay, and then we're analyzing
Which aspect of climb is it going to be? Is it called Zoreya
Okay.
climb or is it called Choresh climb? If it's called Zoreya climb, it makes sense. It's such an Issa. Sad Chalos Isra climb. So he gets lashes because he transgressed the Avera that you're not on a plain climb. By weeding, it's like he's planting. But if you say that weeding is like plowing, we don't find an Avera to plow climb. That's Rav Yosef's kasha to Rabbah. Amalei, so Rabbah replied, Mishum Makayim, that you're right, that is, you wouldn't be Chayiv Malkus. The reason why Chayiv Malkus is because Rabbi Akiva right away says that you're Chayiv Malkus just for sustaining it, for maintaining it, but not doing anything, for the passive act. And it's true that if you don't hold like Rabbi Akiva, you're not going to be Chayiv because you didn't do an act of Zoreya, but according to Rabbi Akiva, you're going to be Chayiv. But the Gemara right away jumps up. Rabbi Akiva is the next opinion. Tanakama is arguing on Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, Afamakam, even if you don't do anything. But the Tanakama seem to argue on Rabbi Akiva and say that Mekayim would not be Chayiv for Klayim only because you're doing something. Menachesh. And what are you doing? That's the most kasha. That the Tanakama is arguing on Rabbi Akiva. You can't put the Rabbi Akiva into the Tanakama. Rabbi Akiva is arguing on the Tanakama. Tanakama doesn't hold Mekayim would be Chayiv. So why should he be Chayiv for weeding? The Gemara says, make a little bit, edit the Bryce a little bit. Kulu Rabbi Akiva, the whole Bryce is Rabbi Akiva talking. Uma Tam Kama is coming to explain the reason. It's coming to explain the Sefer, it's coming to explain the Reisha. Ma Tam Amanacha Shomachaba B'Klaim Loka, Bishum Mekayim, Rabbi Akiva, Omer Afam Mekayim. That's how I have to read the Bryce, that Amanacha Shomachaba B'Klaim is local. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva says a Mekayim climb. That Enochlaim, it's not a Machlokes going on. Only Rabbi Akiva is talking. If you don't hold like Rabbi Akiva, there wouldn't be any Malchus. But Rabbi Akiva says that this is not worse than just maintaining it. So the fact that you maintained it by being menachesh, you didn't do any positive act of doing anything zoreya. But the fact that you didn't take it away, that's also maintaining, and that's why you'd be chayiv. So a pretty dochak, a little dochak, but Rabbah still protects his opinion, his stand, and he still holds that it's considered choresh, not considered zoreya. So far we have machlokis, what's considered when you water. We're going to go back to watering again. Our subject is watering, mashkin beis hashlochim. But here it spoke about menachesh and mashke. Is it considered choresh and zoreya? We have machlokis. Abai says maybe it's both. The Gemara kasha from client that maybe it's a right that is zoreya, and Rabbah deflected the kasha. Could be that it's only choresh still. So we have machlokis, and now the Gemara comes back to us. Before we go further, the Gemara just explains the source of Rabbi Akiva. My time at Rabbi Akiva. Where does Rabbi Akiva get that this Mekayim climb, just sustaining it, maintaining it is also chayiv for climb? Where do you get it from? The Tanya, Sadchol is Israel climb. That's the pasuk that you should not plant climb. But Bryce says, Ein li'alat zoreya. That only would say if you actually planted Mekayim and Naim. How do you know that if you just maintained it, also there'd be a isser of maintaining climb? This is Rabbi Akiva's point. Talmud Loma, Kalayim Sadcholo. So this is interesting. Kalayim Sadcholo seems to be inventing a pasuk. It says Sadchol is Israel climb, and now we're going to say Klayim, Sadcha, Lo. We're jumping around on Scrabble, and what's that all about? So Rashi says there is such a kind of a drasha you're allowed to do sometimes, but I just would like to put onto the screen a different pshat that the Ritva says, a very easy pshat. That does show it on the screen a second. This is a pasuk where it says Sadcha Lo Sizra Klayim, Sadcha Lo Sizra. But if you notice, the pasuk before that says Eschol Kosai Tishmo, Bemtcha Lo Sabia Klayim, comma, Sadcha Lo Sizra Klayim. It says three kinds of climb in the pasuk. One is about crossbreeding animals, one is about crossbreeding seeds, and one is about wearing shatnez is wool and linen, all in the same pasuk. Three kinds of climb: kalai behema, kalai zruim, and kalai begodim. But anyway, the Ritva says that this is the Gemara's drasha, that kalayim sadchalo. Isn't that beautiful? Kalayim sadchalo. That the pasuk could be read in a way, the fact that it says, as far as Sadchol says, we're climbing right. It says, do not plant kalayim. But the fact that the pasuk put kalayim, the other kind of kalayim, you put it right next to here, so there's a drash way to read it, kalayim, Sadcholo. You feel it shouldn't be kalayim in any way. So that's a much easier pshat than Rashi, and there are other pshatim also, but that would explain this drash over here. That was the source of Rabbi Akiva, that you're not allowed to even be kalayim. Yes, please.
How does Mekayim show that it could be Choresh?
I think that the point is that Mekayim just means even passively. If you just maintain it, just let it be. Let it be is also going to be Chayiv Climb. chayiv for Klein. So by weeding
What
it,
does
you're
that have
not
to do with
doing,
Horish?
you're right.
Oh,
Nothing.
so Horish has nothing to do with Kilayim, but that's also passive in a sense.
Right.
So
Even if it's not going to be a special avera of Choresh, but it's not less than being passive. And if according to Bakiva, that passive is also chayiv, so then he also would be, maybe I'm being extreme by saying the word passive, but by maintaining it, even if you're not doing any malacha, but by maintaining it, keeping it going, is also going to be chayiv according to Bakiva. So according to Bakiva, when you're being Choresh, you're at least maintaining it. Not that there's a special issue of Choresh, but there's an issue of maintaining it, anything that you do to maintain it. So that would be also, according to Bakiva, it would be chayiv.
I thought Horish was getting it ready to plant. So in a sense, you're probably destroying the Kalayim, aren't you? Or are you making it?
No, it's helping
What?
it. It's not destroying it. It's helping it. It's not
grow
destroying.
better. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now we get back, now to full circle, we're coming back to our subjects. We had a little cruise, but that was a cruise not just for the bonus, it was in order to come back to our subject. Our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to water. You are allowed to water on Chol HaMoed if it's a Pseida and also on Shemitah. And the Gemara is going to go back to the subject we just spoke about watering on Shabbos and see if there's a connection. So now we learned in our Mishnah, you're allowed to water on Chol HaMoed, as we just said, when there's a hefsid and no tircha, and on Shemitah. Bishlam HaMoed, Mishum tircha hu, Vakum said the Shor Rabbanan. Chol HaMoed, we understand that the whole list is only, the issue of doing malacha on Chol HaMoed is because they don't want you to be busy, to be working on Chol HaMoed, and they were permitted it in case of a loss. So that's what we spoke about till now, that Makom Seder Mishnah allows you to water on Shemitah. There's a discussion in the Rishonim if the Isser Malacha on Shemitah on Chol HaMoed is the Raisa Drabanan. This Gemara sounds a little bit like it's Drabanan. That the whole list is because we don't want it to be too busy working, and therefore the matter sometimes in case of Pseida. Of course, it means Tircha Yisera, don't work too much, like it says, make Shamim and Kilo, and you're not allowed to water it manually or by pump. That was the sukkah we had on Amar Aleph, that we found out it's Rabbi Yehuda talking. But the whole fact that they matter something is because Pseida, they permitted because of loss. And again, if this is because Issa Rabbana, the Gemara reads easily. If you hold that it's Issa Deraisa, the Malacha that's Asar on Chol HaMoed is Issa Deraisa, but also those poskim also are going to say that the Torah left it up to the Rabbanan to say what's mutter, what's Asar. That they're the ones, the Torah gave them the authority to decide what you should do. Not everything, it's not Asar on Chol HaMoed like Yantiv. Yantiv, you're not allowed to do Malacha, and even in Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do Malacha, but some things you are allowed to do. So the Torah left it up to the Rabbanan. Either the whole thing is Rabbanan, or the Torah left it up to the Rabbanan, and therefore the Gemara has no problem. How come you're allowed to water the field on Shemitah, on Chol HaMoed? But what the Gemara is going to ask, Shemitah, El Shvius, Ben Mandama Mishum Zereh, Ben Mandama Mishum Choresh, Zvir Vachavisha B'Shvius Mishari. That all the Gemara till now, this whole cruise was a lead up. We went to all this Gemara to find out that watering on Shabbos would be considered a malacha, one of the 39, either plowing or planting, but it's something very serious. It's considered one of the 39. And if you're not allowed to do malacha on Shemitah, not all the 39, but things that have to do with the malacha of the field. So the Gemara doesn't see why should be mutter? Why should the Mishnah permit you to water the field, even if it's for hefsid, even if the thing's going to go lost? How are you allowed to water on Shemitah? After we came to the conclusion that either it's Choresh or Zoreya, so what's the reason why it's mutter on Shemitah? So there's going to be two twists into this kasha, maybe more, but so far, today we're only going to get to one of them. The Gemara answers, Amar Abaye, B'Shvius B'Zman Hazeh Rebbe. You're right, that it's only because a Shemitah, which is Drabanan, means that the act, the malacha, is a malacha deraisa. If there be a Shemitah, it means in the year that the Shemitah would be Min HaTorah, so then it will be Min HaTorah that you're not allowed to do these malachas. But sometimes the whole Isur Shemitah, the whole year of Shemitah, is only a Drabanan. So then they can permit you to do certain malachas because the whole thing is only Drabanan. So the Gemara's kasha was that if Shemitah is the right, and the malacha of Choresh and Zereh is the right and Shemitah. So what's the heter? The Gemara's answering you right. If it will be a year of Shemitah, which is a deraisa Shemitah, then these malachas will be us. You wouldn't be a lot of water. And then only a lot of water when Shemitah is Drabanan. Why Shemitah Drabanan? The Gemara says B'Zman Hazeh, and we'll see in a minute what that means. The Shvius B'Zman Hazeh Rebbe. The Rebbe holds that Shvius nowadays is only Drabanan. The Tani Rebbe Yomer V'Zeh Dvar Shemitah Shamot. The pasuk is talking about the fact that on Shemitah you have to forego the loans. That if you lent money to somebody and didn't pay you back, the date came back, didn't pay you back, so then you can't force him to pay you. That's called Shmitas Ksafim, that you have to let go of the loans. But it used the extra word, B'zeh Dvar Shmita. This is the issue of Shmita. Shamot B'kalmal Mashiado, that everybody should let go of their loans. But it's an extra word. And the extra word is very redundant. It didn't have to say it so long. But the person is talking about two kinds of Shmita. The fact that it said two words, Shmita and Shamot. Acha Shmita Kaka, Acha Shmitas Ksafim. That the pasuk is including the din of here. That's the actual pasuk is talking about Shmitas Ksafim. But it says Zeh Dvar Shmita. Bizman she'ata meshamet kaka, ata meshamet ksafim. Bizman she'ata meshamet kaka, yata meshamet ksafim. That the din of Shmitas Ksafim was only when Shmitas Karka. Shmitas Ksafim again means that you forego the loan. Shmitas Karka, the pashas means that you don't do malacha. You don't do malacha on the field and you let it hefker to everybody. So they're interrelated, that they're talui, they're interdependent. And when one applies, the other one applies. When one doesn't apply, the other one doesn't apply either. But let's say Rashi's shot so far. Rashi says that Shmitas Karka means Shmita, that you're not allowed to do malacha, and Shmitas Ksafim means you have to forego the loans. And you see that sometimes the Shmitas Karka doesn't apply. The fact that the pasuk is hinting to you that Shmitas Ksafim, to forego the loans, doesn't apply only when Shmita is the Raisa. When Shmita, sometimes there's no Shmita. That's how Rashi learns, that it's telling you sometimes there's no Shmita. So you see that Shmita B'zman Hazeh Rabbanan. There's an easier pshat maybe. Well, here Ben Hananel seems to say, here he says here on the bottom line of Rabbeinu Hananel, he says Shmita. Here he says B'karka Sheretz Yisrael b'dei goyim he. He says that nowadays, here's a go. B'zman shata meshamet karka va'idna. It starts one line up. Va'idna the ain Shmita b'karka Sheretz Yisrael b'dei goyim. He says the fact that Eretz Yisrael is in the hands of goyim in that time. Baruch Hashem nowadays is the hand of Jews. We should get all of it. So. When it's in the hands of goyim, so then there's no possibility to do shmita because the goyim have it, and maybe there's not chayv shmita. The feels that the goyim have. That's how Ben Hananel learns. There's maybe an easier pshat in the Gemara that the Rambam says that shmitas karka in the Gemara means yovel. It's another way of saying yovel. Yovel means once every 50 years. So then the shmitas karka would mean not that you don't do malacha, but it means that you have the fields go back to their original owners. That's called shmitas karka. So then Shmitas Ksafim applies, and also the halacha that you're not allowed to work the field. Whatever the drash is going to be, we have about three possibilities what the drash might be, but whatever it is, it says that sometimes Shmitas Karka is only Rabbanan, that sometimes either the Rambam, when Yovel doesn't apply because Am Yisrael is not mostly in Eretz Yisrael, then it's only the Rabbanan, even the work the field, or whatever drash it might be, the Goyim might here, whatever the drash is, sometimes it says here that B'zman Hazeh Shmita is only Rabbanan, according to Rebbe, and therefore, the kasha was, how are you allowed to water the field on Shemitah? The answer is because Shemitah is Drabanan. It's true that when Shemitah is going to be the Raisa, so then you're not allowed to water the field with the Raisa, and there would be no heter of doing it even in Makam Seder. But when Shemitah is Drabanan, then you are allowed to. The Gemara continues now we'll stop here. The Gemara is going to continue another teretz. Rabbi is going to say another teretz. But so far we'll stop at Abayi's teretz, and he says, Shemitah B'zman Hazeh Drabanan. So that's the sum up what we learned today. The Mishnah said on Chol moed, you're allowed to do malacha of watering if there are two conditions. One is that it's upseda, it's a loss if you're not going to do it, and also that you're not exerting yourself too much. We're not choshish you're going to work too much. If it's something that might fall in and you might come to fix it, we're not choshish for that, and that's why man shasa b'tchila is mutter. But you're not allowed to actually exert yourself too much, and therefore, if it falls in, you're not allowed to fix it. And Meg Yishamim also would be also, you're not allowed to pump the water or bring the water manually in a way that you have to work very hard. The first Gemara spoke about that Mishnah implies that if it will be a Beis Abal, if it will be a field which is enough with the rainwater, it could exist, it's not going to be a loss, then it's also, even if it's a Mayan Shaloyas B'tchila, and it's old established mine, it's not going to fall in, no exertion, still it's usher. And that's how we paskin. And Agav, the Gemara said the terms of Beis HaShlochin, Beis HaBal, Beis HaShlochin means thirsty, a thirsty field, like and the word Beis HaBal is like Yival B'chur B'sulah, that it means Miyushav. Who's the author of our Mishnah? We found Rabbi Yehuda. He holds both of these conditions, that it has to be Dafka Makom Seder, and also that it shouldn't be too much work. There are other opinions, Rabbi Meir is very makel, even in Beis HaBal, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azai is also, even if it's a Beis HaShlochin, if it's a Mayan Shasa B'tchila. And our Mishnah fits with Rabbi Yehuda. Even Rabbi Yehuda is not preferish about the point about a Beis HaBal being usher, but from lack of anybody else, it must be Rabbi Yehuda is going to be the author of our Mishnah, and that seems to be what we paskin. The rest of the Gemara spoke about first a little cruise to find out what is the isser of watering, under which category does it go. became the possibilities of choresh, plowing, was a way of planting, or bias at both. And the Gemara the Kasha by Klein that it should not be Issa Deraisa according to Rabba, and he says you're right, only according to Rabbi Kiva that says it's considered maintaining. But back to our subject, the question was that why should we be a heter of watering on Shemitah? It seems to be the Choresh was a ray, both of them are on Shemitah, and how come they're about permitted by Chol Moed? Either the Issa Chol Moed is Rabbanan completely, or the Torah gave it over to the Rabbanan to decide what should be mutter. So they said, "V'makom say that we're going to allow you to water. That's okay." But by Shemitah, why should it be mutter? It's Issa Deraisa. And the more answered, "You're right. It's only mutter in a time that Shemitah is Rabbanan." And we find Rebbe that holds that Shemitah Bisman is Rabbanan.
That's what we pass for ourselves today. It's Rabbanan.
I think so. The Shemitah is Rabbanan nowadays because they don't, and it has to do with Yovel, that you don't have the whole Am Yisrael present in Eretz Yisrael, Rubam or Kol Yishrael. That's why it's Rabbanan. If Am Yisrael is going to soon move to Eretz Yisrael, so then it's going to be the Raisa.
Okay. Good.
Yes, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Does the Gemara define
Thank you very much.
Abseda Turcha any place?
I'm sorry.
Does the Gemara define how much
Oh,
Turcha
how-
or Abseda any place?
How much is I don't know how much is considered upseda, and how much is doesn't mean that if the whole field's going to get ruined or there's going to be some a partial loss. I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know the answer. And also, how much is considered tircha? How much is considered to be overexerting? I don't know. The examples that they have, if we'd be living in that society, so we would understand what does it mean to get a basic make shamim or make kilon. But since we don't have that, so it's still hard. There's a Gemara later on, I think, in this Masechta that it said Hilchos Moed Akuros, that halachas of Chol Moed are you can't apply one to the other because the Chachamim made different definitions for each one, and it's hard to apply from one to another. So I think they say in the name of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that Hilchos Chol Moed is very hard because the Gemara itself says you can't learn from one to you can't apply one to another. So the poskim were left hanging. That what do you do to make an application? Any kind of application, the Gemara says that you're not entitled to make an application. That's what it says. So there's a lot of confusion in Hilchos Chol Moed. The Maisa, what to say is considered each hagdara, each definition, because we're not supposed to make applications. So the poskim are at a loss over there.
Tomorrow night, beg your pardon.
Tomorrow night, 6:45, if that's good with everybody. Okay. Yes, go everybody. Thank you.
Shabbos.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good
Welcome
Shabbos.
to Shabbos.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos. Have a good
Thank
Shabbos,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Good Shabbos, Ari. Kol Tov.